Idaho's elected leaders have promised and delivered real results over and over and over for the people we serve.
And we are back. We're keeping our promise to return after our holiday break. We begin with the beginning of the 2025 legislative session. Kicking off today with Governor Brad Little's State of the State address. And we're going to get right to it with both Aspen Shumpert and Joe Paris alongside me here to kind of break down what happened and what promises Governor Little plans to hopefully keep this year, right?
Yeah, there's a lot on the table, so we'll dig into some of it now. And don't worry, folks, over the next 3, maybe 4 months, who knows, we will be on top of it. But a big question that I know that for all Idahoans, did they talk about taxes at all today? Are they going to do a big tax cut again this year? We'll see what they actually do, but the answer in terms of is the topic on the table, the answer is yes. And I spoke with House Speaker Mike Moyle about a few different topics today. We'll start with taxes. He says lawmakers are focused on taxes in several areas.
Careful how you do it. And there's some movement in his budget. Now that we know a little bit about his budget, there's some things we can do there. And there's room to do quite a bit. I think we can touch on all three. I think we can touch on income, sales, and property. I'm not positive, but I think we can, and we'll try to do that.
And that's something, as the state of Idaho has continued to grow, that we've heard from homeowners, we've heard from people across the state saying, well, if taxes were lowered, it'd be more affordable to live here.
Yeah, so even Governor Little talked about, I think he said $100 million in his State of the State. That's what he wants to bring to the table this year. Aspen, you spoke to the Democrats who this year, this session, well, there are 4 fewer in the Idaho legislature than there have been in the last couple of years.
There are, yeah. And they do feel differently about the recommended $100 million in tax relief by the governor. But State Minority Leader Melissa Wintrow suggests if we're going to look at tax relief, there is one area that may be better than the others.
I'd like to remind everybody that when we talk about taxes, that's also a reduction of revenue, and that's a reduction of the vital resources that we need to help with programs and services for our government. Now, if we are going to lower taxes or lower those revenues, I think we should focus on the grocery tax. Lifting the tax on groceries is a more meaningful way to help working families versus an income tax rebate, which we've seen in the past really benefits wealthier people and not really middle or lower income folks.
The Democrats say although Idaho has been a fast-growing state, we're not seeing as big as an influx anymore, and that may be dangerous to commit to a $100 million reduction in revenue and could lead to basic needs that the public counts on to not be fully delivered.
Democrats obviously not singing the praises of that State of the State. But we talked about this all the time. Least regulated state in the union. That was addressed today.
Yeah, and it's really in vogue now, especially on the federal level with the Trump administration. And yes, Idaho has taken pride in really cutting regulations, the so-called red tape. Governor Little, the legislature, they've really tackled that in recent years. It is something, though, that Speaker Moyle reminds us that really started in the Idaho House. And with all the talk on the federal level about the Department of Government Efficiency, it's called DOGE, Idaho, well, they're ready to double down on more.
You'll see a bill here soon that will ask the agencies to let us know where all their statutes are, what the statutes say, what they pertain to, and then I want to find a path forward to eliminate a lot of that, because a lot of that's redundant, it's not needed, and I want to clean up the statute books, just like we've done in rules, and there's more to do on the rule process.
And that is something that we've heard from agencies in recent years when they kind of did all the rule reviews. And even in our work, when we look into things, there are duplicates or things that kind of contradict each other. So with such an extended code, they're ready to clean up the regulations.
Yeah, on election night, we heard from Speaker Moyle at the GOP party talking about how they were ready to address Medicaid and what was going on with the state there. But that wasn't addressed in the State of the State today, was it?
Yeah, no, it wasn't, but it remains a priority for the Democrats. And what we didn't hear from the governor was any priorities or discussions on health care. Healthcare remains at the top of the list for the Democratic Party, including defending Medicaid expansion, as well as fighting for a chance for Idaho's abortion ban.
We continue to have the most severe and extreme abortion ban in the country that has no exception for women's health. We know that women have had to be airlifted out of the state, that we have lost, I believe now 55% of our high-risk maternity specialists, and I think it's now up to about a third of our OBGYNs. We can't get doctors to come here. No doctors want to practice in a state where they face 5 years in prison for providing routine health care when a woman is having a health emergency and the only way to save her is through an abortion. That happens. That's a medical reality. And it's not a medical reality right now that is accommodated by our laws.
House Minority Leader Elena Rebel says in the past, Republican counterparts have blocked even a hearing or a vote for any kind of health exception to the abortion ban to address some of the realities, like women who are hemorrhaging or facing a health emergency. Representative Rebel says they will continue to push to try to get an exception to Idaho's abortion ban, which we know is still tied up in court.
Which I'm guessing will not get any sort of hearing until that is decided, because then it may prove that they don't have to do anything. The courts may say it's fine as it is. All right, so the next big topic that we know is coming down the pike this legislative session is education.
Yes, education.
Always, every year.
Always is, and then the very specific tenet here of school vouchers, school credits, whatever you want to call them. And it's an interesting conversation that we have followed for years here, and Speaker Moyle has a lot of influence on the topic. So here are the day one thoughts on school choice. Again, ideas have referred to this as vouchers or education savings accounts in years past. Those are proposals that failed, but this is also something that Governor Little is focused on too, and kind of drew a line in the sand.
Concerns that were voiced by the governor, I think, are going to be addressed in this bill. And so I think that will help make it get to the end of the finish line, I hope. You know, he laid out what he wants in the bill. And I think from what I've seen, most of those concerns are addressed in the bill. Now, you know, it's a draft, so it could change. But in the draft I've seen, they're addressed.
And when you talk to Governor Little and you hear from him, I mean, specifically in his State of the State, he talks about efficiency and you talk about accountability. And so there will be questions on what that looks like. I will say, too, there's an idea we'll talk about in just a moment on this, but there are a lot of different ideas floating around the State House on how to accomplish this.
And if I'm correct, this might be the first time he addressed it in the State of the State, specifically with a school voucher, school choice, tax credit kind of thing. Okay, so on the Democratic side, what's their take on this?
Yeah, they're not fans of the tax credit. And although Democrats were pleased to hear there was continued investment in public education, the school tax relief is a big concern for them, they say, even with the governor ensuring the tax credit will be constitutional and have full accountability.
It's unfortunate to see the governor has been standing up against this for a number of years, and this year it sounds like he's cracking. I still hope there's a way to stop this from happening, because we have seen in states that have pursued these plans that it's been a disaster. And he's saying he's proposing $50 million. It will never be stopped at $50 million. In Arizona, they started with $30 million. It's now $825 million. So this is a budget buster that is a disaster for public schools.
Representative Rebel says if we see this, she feels that it will bust the budget and that essentially the government is cutting checks to wealthy families who are already choosing to put their kids in private school, and they think this is something that the state can't afford to do. Brian, I know you're going to get into this a little more.
Again, there's certainly more to explore when it comes to this, because again, we have not seen the bill. It is still in draft form. It can change, but I think that's something we can see very soon within the next week or so. So thank you both. We're going to look forward to more from both of you as this legislative session continues.